What's going on, everybody? We're back for episode 3 at Be the Standard, and I'm your host, Denny Paul, and here, as usual, with my co-host and best friend, Mike Burns. Before we get started, go ahead, subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. What that does is provide you with real-time updates of our content as soon as we release it. Also, check out our Instagram pages. You can check us out at Be the Standard podcast at that's the business page. And then also you can check us out, our personal pages, Denny_Paul12 and then Mike Burns 1. Check us out on LinkedIn as well. We're there, Be the Standard podcast. I post the content on all of those platforms. So you can find us on LinkedIn as well. So before we get started, though, Mike, what I wanted to do was, kind of in the spirit of transparency is, I was thinking about your response to one of the questions that I asked. I believe it was episode 1. But something that I thought of and, that you said that really stuck out to me was you have to be the standard for yourself before you can do that for others. And that kind of resonated with me because I want to make sure that the people listening, the people watching, really understand that, we understand that people are human. We're not out here preaching. And, I know for myself personally, I've gone in and out of, who I believe I am, several times over my lifetime, really. And I've really had to recalibrate and reassess a number of times, whether that be, personally, professionally, in the gym. I've really had to take a step back a number of times and be like, I'm not doing the things that I need to be doing. I need to set these standards for myself. I need to create these habits for myself. And, and by now I think the viewers know that, those are the principles that I live by now is those 4 key principles that I talk about all the time and I post all the time is setting standards, creating habits, execution, and accountability. And, I just want to make the point that, to be the standard for yourself, it takes a lot of time. And then you can go on and do that, once you've figured out who you are, which I've had to do again more recently over the last 18 months or so. I've really done a lot of work on myself to kind of get back to that point where, all right, this is who I am. These are the principles I live by. And, there's really nothing that can break that. So, yeah, I appreciate the point you made there because it is something that made me think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to reiterate, just kind of what you just said is really like we're not preaching. We're never going to. We're just giving our real life experience, and it's not linear. I mean, it goes up and down, and you recalibrate. Like I like the word you use, recalibrate. That was good.
Yeah.
That was key. You're figuring out. Hey, I fell off of this. This didn't work for me. Recalibrate, fix it, and then move on. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best way to put it, man.
Yeah.
Like.
And it's constant. You have to be doing that.
Absolutely.
You'll never get anywhere one way or the other, right? If you're not in that mode of like, okay, is this still working for me?
But to harp on that, it's the awareness of knowing that, though, right? A lot of people, they'll blindly go on their journey, never stop to recalibrate. I think you need to, either whether it's through failure or it's through a lesson learned, or where you're just like, hey, maybe let's pause for a second. And let's recalibrate. Is this working? If it is, great. Let's keep going. If it's not, hey, let's figure it out and I kind of move on. So I love that. That's probably the perfect way to put this. Mm-hmm. That's the journey, man. Please go ahead.
No, and I was just gonna say, and I think the idea too is to not get to a point where you're doing it based off of like, okay, I've had this life altering event or this qualifying event. Now I have to recalibrate. It's kind of like you want to get to the point where you're doing these things naturally. You're doing these self-assessments of, okay, where am I at? Yep. Am I happy? Is it making me fulfilled? I mean, forget happiness for a second, right? I don't even care about happiness. Am I fulfilled? And, how do I, just keep reassessing and making sure that you're on the path that you want to be on. Yep. Whatever that looks like.
Love it. Good. Well said.
Yeah. And I think that kind of brings us, it's something that I wanted to talk about, for our first topic today was, we know people in our life, right? And people close to us and people that we care about. We all do, that kind of have a victim mentality, right? And it's something that I wanted to discuss because I think a lot of people are falling into that mindset is, with the way things are going right now, whether it's the economy, whether it's the job market, whether it's, whatever the case may be. I think a lot of people are starting to feel, maybe victimized. And what that does is, in my opinion, I think it brings on just a whole new mentality that people adopt. And I think I just think we're seeing a lot of that victim mentality, and it's so detrimental to growth and kind of essentially pushing you in the direction you want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I literally just echoing the words as you were saying them, detrimental to your growth. I mean, right now we're in a climate, unfortunately, where a lot happens. It's happened throughout history, but right now people are given the excuse that it's okay, to be okay with it. I guess, you know what I mean. Like, things are going to happen. You make bad decisions. We do bad, but to sit there and be a victim is not okay. I mean, recognize it, fix it, and then move on. So. But unfortunately, the climate now is being more, there's not enough tools being given. It's being more handicapped, being like, no, these things happen to you. It's okay for you to go ahead and blame those things the rest of your life. Because when that ends up doing, as we know, I'm sure you're going to get into it, it's just going to hold you back.
Yeah.
You can't take ownership for where you're at, whether you did it or outside forces, it happened to you.
Yeah.
Recognize it. It's okay. And then we got to fix it now, though, and stop being a victim and move on. So,
and that's what I love about, like, Jocko Willink when he says, "Everything is your fault."
I love that. I've always, that's always resonated with me watching that way back in the day. I'm like, man, that's so true.
And just to take a step back, the idea of a victim mentality, if people don't really understand what we're talking about, essentially what it is, it's the idea that, no matter what you do, the actions you take, the people you surround yourself, bad things are going to happen to you no matter what. So why put in the effort to either be better or change, right? Why take these steps to maybe enhance your life if your thought process is that no matter what I do, bad things are going to happen to me.
Or I am because fill in the blank, right?
Yep.
Like, I am this way because these things happen to me. Like, no, you're not. You decide to be this way. Like, these things happen to you. It's your decision to stay there.
Yep.
And be a product of those things that have happened to you, I guess.
And I think that, you can kind of use that excuse as a kid, right? Because when things happen as a kid,
right,
that's out of your control, and you can't react in a way that you would like to, because you don't even know how to. You don't know how to react as a kid when, for example, like I said, I've talked about it before, I grew up in foster care. My mother passed away from AIDS when I was a kid. I've never met my father. Grew up around violence and drugs and a lot of different things. I couldn't control that. But what I could do as an adult is create a mindset that said, okay, like, all this shit happened, but I don't have to...
You don't have to stay there.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, you made the decision to recognize where you're at and then move on and to get out of there. Well, that's why I find more impressed about your story. Like, especially the more, like, even just doing this podcast, we'll learn a lot about you. You know what I mean? That these things happen. Despite these things, you decided, like, on your own, like, hey, I need to get out of this, and you found a way out. And again, the path isn't linear. It's not going to be that way. It's going to be ups and downs, good decisions, bad decisions, compromising your values, all these things to figure out where you're at. But you've never sat there, and I think that's why you are where you are in life right now, is because you have not adopted that victim mentality, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of it, I have to give a lot of credit to, my foster mom and my aunt who adopted me, because both of them, very strong women, they wouldn't allow me to feel like a victim. I can remember my foster mom, telling me at a young age, hey, shit just happens, and, you're going to have to figure out a way to get over it and deal with it and compartmentalize. And ultimately, you can't let these things be a hindrance on your entire life, because if you get caught up with it, that's what happens, and people do it. People do it all the time, and
yeah, they definitely do it.
yeah. And in my aunt, who adopted me, if you can even believe it, her story is as bad as mine, maybe even worse. She went through a lot herself, and even her, she was just like, Danny, you can't think that way. You have to, just be stronger and believe that, you're capable of doing better. And
right.
So,
I just want to stop you there. I don't mean to interrupt
no.
you, but I think it's just like you just said, and possibly worse. There's always going to be somebody who's put in a worse situation than you, and they got out of it if they chose to. And there's probably people that have been in less situations than you, and they decided to stay there. So I think I just want to hold on that key part that you said, like we're not comparing. We'd never do that. I mean, some people, every struggle is real. And it's how you take it, right? And then what you do with it. And some people have overcome a lot. And then when they do that, they become, you see the kind of person they become. So just want to kind of emphasize that point you just said. I didn't mean to cut you off, though.
No, that's fine. And you kind of nailed on it, like another point that I was going to make. And, that's something I told myself when I was a kid. I can remember saying it. There's somebody out there that has it worse. There always is. There always will be. In a lot of ways, I would just tell myself I'm lucky. I have a foster mom. I have a roof over my head. Some kids are sleeping outside. I had an aunt who adopted me and took me in. I at least got to stay with my family. A lot of people don't. So there's always somebody that has it worse. So I've always kind of just had that mentality that, it was tough. It was hard. I made it through. I feel like I have the right tools and the right mindset to really overcome anything.
Yeah, again, not to cut you off, I just love how you just flipped the script right there, and you were like, hey, I have these things. I'm not looking at the negative things that happen to me. I have these things. You just highlighted a whole bunch of things. It's the anti-victim mentality, right? Like, hey, I'm lucky enough. Some, fosters, like, they're away from their family. I had this. At least I had this. At least I had this. And you took those things and you held on to them. I think that's cool. I love that. That's cool.
Yeah, and I don't even understand, I do think, some of it comes from, my foster mom saying the things that she would say to me, my aunt saying the things that she would say to me, but I just always felt like there's got to be somebody that has it worse than me. There has to be. And growing up in Worcester, Massachusetts, there's some tough areas in there, so you do run into people who do have it worse, and you see, these kids in the inner city and how they grow up and how they live, and you see just that it's worse out there for some people, and you just got to figure out a way to, not slip into, the victim mentality of why me, and I think if you, again, we don't want to do comparisons. However, if you look at it from the flip side of not compare it to who had it worse and, turn it into that, you turn it into how lucky you are. Yeah. The positives, like you said, accentuate the positives, and
just gratitude, right? Like you just said, almost that's gratitude. Like, hey, I'm lucky I have these things.
And I've gotten to the point, and this, I don't know if this sounds insensitive, and I guess I don't care, but I think that I actually expect more out of people who have gone through shit. I do. Because I think they should. I think they do have the tools to just overcome more. If I hire somebody for work, I'm expecting that the person with the tougher upbringing is going to work even harder. I'm expecting that, if they're given a situation where problems arise, they're going to be able to figure out ways to overcome them. And I just generally think that people who have had a struggle are more valuable to the workforce. I think you can learn more from people that way, or that grew up that way, or have been through certain things. I think that's why, you see a lot of, these Navy SEALs or whatever, they write these books, and the reason people want to read those books is because they want to know about their struggle. They want to know how hard it was to become a Navy SEAL. They want to know about their missions and what they dealt with overseas and all of that stuff. And I think that those are the types of experiences that people want to hear because they want to learn, they want to be inspired.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to read about someone who had it easy, right? They want to read about someone who had it hard and overcome. Like, that's just storytelling since the beginning of time. You always want to root for the hero, someone that's had the deck stacked against them and they continue to go anyways. But guess what? They never had the victim mentality. How could they? You know what I mean? Because they would never get out of it. The victim mentality keeps you on that loop, just that negative feedback loop. Like, I'm here because of this. And we've heard it. We know these people, right? They're going to sit there and be like, hey, why don't you try this? Like, oh, no, because of this. They're quick to give you answers. Yeah. They're quick to give you,
because they're pre-programmed.
It's like they're on that negative feedback loop. They're just like, hey, why don't you try this? Like, oh, no, because of this. And they're fast. Like, they're good at it. They've been doing it a long time. And unfortunately, how do you break that? I'd love to learn that.
And I think that point is so important because people just have these pre-programmed answers, these pre-programmed excuses as to why they're not getting where they need to be. And it's a bunch of bullshit because they've put you're setting yourself so far back by telling yourself that, oh, well, what's happened to me is it's just not my fault. And I can't do anything about it. You're fucked. When you start thinking that way and start not only thinking that way, but projecting that attitude onto other people and giving them those excuses, not only do you set yourself back, but you look weak.
Well, you are weak, right? Let's call it for what it is. I'm not trying to put anybody out there, but you're putting yourself in a weak position because you're being weak, because you're not taking ownership of the position you're in, whether it's your fault, whether it happened to you. It is, like Jocko Willink said, right? It's your responsibility to do something about it. Yep. And you should. And there's always something you can do as long as you break that victim mentality that you're talking about. Break that negative feedback loop. So all the things I've done in my life, I think I've been pretty fortunate there, just because I've never, even when my life was complete crap, I never looked back, and I was in the situation I was in. I was like, oh man, I'm here because of this. I'm here because of this. And even the situations I put myself in personally, making bad decisions, getting kicked out of high school, drinking all the time, like getting arrested, like hanging out with the wrong people, never getting away from those people. You know what I mean? Like, I always blame myself.
Right.
And it's like, I did this to me. Like, I have to it's up to me to get out of here. And that's how I think you can get out of there, is when you recognize it. Whether, again, there's like, whether, it happened to you or you did it, you can always get out of it as long as you recognize it's up to me to take care of it.
Yeah. And I've kind of just taken on the mentality of, like, I look at, like, all the shit that I went through, I look at it almost as like a badge of honor.
You should.
And I just know myself and I know my personality. Like, if I grew up in the right home with the right family and like perfect, and I wouldn't be who I am.
So check this out. Again, not to stop, because we're both military guys, right? Go through basic training. Like, I don't know when you went through, I know we're a couple years apart there. Yeah. By a couple of years, probably a lot of years. But like you had, at least when I was going through, you had different battalions that went through different stress levels, right? So when you found out you were in one of the higher stress levels, it sucked when you were doing it, but at the end of it, you were proud of it. You know what I mean? Because you learned from it, it made you tougher. Like, again, nobody really wants easy. If you do, I really don't want to be around you. You know what I mean? I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't want to say that. But I seek out people that want hard, that want to grow and go through this. So you like, to go back to your point, it's like you do wear it as a badge of honor because you had this happen to you and you overcame it. You're still here. I love it.
Yeah, and the reason I think, guys like us don't really want to be around or don't find a use for people who don't think that way is because what are you going to learn? Right. If you have to surround yourself with like-minded people. If you're surrounding yourself with people that aren't like you, they don't work hard, they don't seek hard, then you're going to become what they are. Right? Or hopefully you're going to bring them up to where you're at, right? Because that's how relationships work. Yep. You are what you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with 4 weak-minded people or people who seek easy, it's only a matter of time before you're weak-minded and you seek easy.
So here's my question to you, though, and I know we both experienced this, and I want to know your take on it. I don't have an answer for it. I'm not going to pretend I do. The people that have this, going back to the topic we're talking about, is the victim mentality. If you can't break someone of that, what do you do? Like, you have to get away from it, because eventually I think it will wear you down. I think it'll bring you down to their level. What do you think?
I agree with that. I mean, I think obviously the point is to not allow them to bring you down to their level. I think you cut ties because it's you can't anything that's detrimental to you and what you're looking to accomplish has to go.
Right.
Regardless of what that is, because it becomes a vice.
Because you want to be the kind of people who are. That's why we do what we do. I think is like you want to bring people up, like you said. But at what point do you say, I can no longer. What I'm doing is not working. I got to get away from this. Like, have you had a circumstance in your life where you've recognized that and had to get away?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head where I've just like had to get away or cut ties or I feel like that kind of stuff. I just if something's not for me, I just slowly it organically just goes away. I stop engaging.
Yeah,
and it's only a matter of time before
let it organically.
The problem is just eliminated. Yeah.
Okay. All right, but you've never been in a situation where you've had to be like, hey, had that tough conversation with someone you love, being like, hey, I can't do this anymore. You're doing this. Like
no, but one of the things that I think I've done a decent job is just trying to surround myself with people that, not even necessarily people that think exactly like me or do exactly like me, but just quality people. And if I don't think, you're adding value to me as a person, or like there's nothing I can learn from you, or if there's nothing of value between our interactions, then I just won't engage. I just don't see the point.
Right, because as you get older, the busier we get, and you realize,
and that's friends, that's family,
it's everybody.
That's I've cut. I don't hang around with family members that much. That I just don't. Obviously, my family, my mother, my sister, I hang around with them, and my stepfather, but extended family, I don't really. Not a ton of time. I mean, I love seeing them at events and stuff, but I don't think we have a lot in common, and that's okay, right? I love to see them. I love to catch up, but that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, like it's okay. Like I don't wish any ill will on you. Like I hope you do great, but you're just not for me. Right now, like this is, I just can't have that. So when you kind of
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say when it comes to family, it's not even that extreme. Like it's just I just don't go out of my way for anything. I just feel like I don't have the time to like go out of my way for anything that's not, really making me grow or really just enhancing, whatever aspect of my life.
As we get older and as you get more into things, right, you just get busy. And so you got to really be careful how you spend your time and who you spend it with. I get it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing people with the victim mentality don't understand is that when you do start putting in the effort and you do start working on yourself and stop blaming others and start blaming yourself, you start to realize that the world is a totally different place when you start to earn things. Yeah. Because the people with that mentality, they think that something's coming to save them. If you have like the people with the victim mentality think that,
and that's what they
want. They think someone or something is just going to fall into their lap. Circumstances are just going to change. They don't think or understand that, no, you got to fucking get up and you got to go out there and get it.
Let's just stop it right there. What if that does happen to somebody? Because I'm sure it does. Once a blue moon, say someone hits the lottery. Mm-hmm. What does it do, though? It cripples you for life because you haven't grown to learn from. Mm-hmm. You didn't claw your way out. You didn't fight your way out. You didn't find your own way out. And that's what keeps you out. Yeah. Right? If someone just bails you out, hey, I know you're in a tough situation. I'm going to give you $100,000 and you're out of it, then you haven't learned anything. You haven't grown, and you're going to fall, more than likely. You're going to fall back into that.
That's not going to fix anything. Nothing. that person's still the same person, and it's only a matter of time before, like, you take somebody with that mentality who's like thinks money's the answer. You give them all the money in the world, and they're gonna be fucking broke again, in X amount of time. I don't know, But that type of a person who doesn't have themselves in order, then, in my opinion, nothing changes. Nothing changes. They eventually just go back to the same fucking thing. A person who spends money irresponsibly now, you give them more of it, and they're just going to spend more of it irresponsibly, and they're going to be broke again. So
it goes back to that growth factor. Going back, I don't know what episode we talked about it on, but if I'm the same person a year from now, I look back and I have not grown, then I failed. That's how I look at it as a failure, because that means I'm not growing, I'm not working on myself. Like you said perfectly. I'm not working on myself. And to get out of these situations, get rid of that victim mentality, you have to work on yourself, grow. Yeah, it's work. And the worse the circumstance, the more work it is. I get it. But then, like you said at the end, that's the hero story, man. That's badass. Like, I overcame all this. What's your excuse?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's what I think about when I see some of these guys that are out there, with their podcasts or their story. And I'm like, okay, like, this guy had it tough, and now he's a fucking millionaire. But it all goes back to what I opened up with, and that's being the standard for yourself first. But as far as the victim mentality and all that stuff, growing up where I did, like, you didn't see, there weren't a lot of rich people or privileged people or anything like that. Worcester is very diverse. Drugs, crime, fights. Got in a lot of fights as a kid. Then, moving out to Thompson when my aunt adopted me, Thompson, Connecticut, small farm town, high school, 400 kids, maybe just under that. All white, no diversity whatsoever. So it's funny. I've always told people that, I kind of had both experiences, right? Living in the ghetto, being like the white guy, and then growing up, in Thompson, Connecticut, kind of being the country kid with it's only white people there, basically. But it was two very different worlds, and I feel like I've experienced both of them. And I just struggle being around people who grew up privileged. I have a couple friends that I worked with at Oracle who they went to Cornell or Michigan or all these big schools, and it's not their fault, right? They grew up how they grew up, and I understand, but I don't have the same level of, and I don't mean this to respect, be I was gonna say respect and admiration. I don't have the same level of that for them, and it's not their fault. Does that make sense? Yeah. I just struggle being around people who haven't really had to struggle. And that's not to say, like, you don't know everybody's personal situation. Maybe they grew up with all the money in the world and they've still had X, as an issue, right? Whatever it was. I don't know. I don't know everybody's personal story. But I struggle being around people who grew up very differently than me.
Yeah. I mean, again, going back to the hero of the story, right? Like, someone that struggled more, you're going to respect them more, and you want to be around that. Again, I don't fault anybody for the way they grew up. They grew up the way they grew up. If you grew up in privilege and you still killed it and you're a good person, great. Hopefully you're a good person. That's all I care about. Like, you and I are the same, and I'm definitely just trying to surround myself with people that are good people, like really good people. And that's all I want in life, is just be around good people, like you said. So, but I want around people that are going to push me too, honestly. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be around people like, hey, Mike, you're doing great. You're good. And when I'm not, and I know it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't need people to do that to me. Like, I want people to be like, hey, Mike, you're fucking up. You need to wake up. Like, pay attention to this. Pay attention to these things. And it doesn't have to be harsh like that, but sometimes you need it. You know what I mean? And that's why my circle is very, very small now. And I only surround myself with people, like you said, people who are going to help, the people who are going to push me and grow, and I'm going to learn from. Of course, can we learn from each other? Absolutely. But I really want to,
And just from that point, like, when I say, like, being around people who grew up privileged and stuff, it's again, it's not even just that I can't relate. I feel like I can't be taught anything, right? I don't feel like I can learn from them. So that's where I struggle. It's not like an envious thing. It's not a personal thing. It's just I don't feel like I can relate. I don't feel like I can learn. So that's kind of where I get stuck, being in that environment and being an avid golfer. I golf a ton.
Yes, you do.
I go to, like, these nice clubs, in private clubs and things like that, and I play golf, and I'm like, some of the people that I find myself near, I'm just like blown away, by just
one of these days we're gonna get Denny to teach me how to play golf, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'll try. Golf's hard, man. Fucking, it's really hard. I got decent last year, but then I finished the year and sucked again. But no, golf's hard, and but yeah, just being around some of the people in some of those nice clubs, it was just like, fuck, I just can't do it. But yeah, so that's one of the topics. I think we kind of ate up a lot of time there talking about that particular topic as far as the victim mindset or the victim mentality and why that's detrimental to growth. But before we wrap up, what I'd like to do is acknowledge a good friend of ours, John Doolittle.
Great leader.
Yeah, awesome dude. He was our PRT commander in Afghanistan. Retired Navy SEAL. He had, I believe, over 25 years of experience. He's a graduate of the Air Force Academy. But he just participated in the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim back on January 14th. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a 3.4 mile open water swim. It's across some pretty frigid Tampa Bay waters. It gets very cold from what I understand. And essentially what this event does is it's designed to build national awareness, for the Naval Special Warfare groups and support the Navy SEAL Foundation. And, the mission of the Navy SEAL Foundation essentially is to provide ongoing support and services for the Naval Special Warfare community and their families. And so this year, John Doolittle, again, a good friend of ours, he participated in honor of one of his fallen teammates, Scotty Wirtz. He was killed conducting operations in Syria back in 2019. And what was pretty cool is I was able to come across an interview that JD did with Scotty Wirtz's mom. And it was with the local news station. And it was pretty cool because if you just listened to her talk and just kind of pulled, the words that she was saying, but saw her personality, she just seemed like she was glowing, right? She was so happy that people were out there supporting the cause, supporting, the mission to support her son. And JD was in the interview with her. So it was just really cool. And what's, equally as cool is John Doolittle. Again, he actually has agreed to be a guest on our podcast. We're just working out the logistics. He lives down in that Tampa area. So we're working out the logistics, and you can expect to see John on the podcast. Again, don't know exactly when, but he will be on. He's just, he wants to come up to Boston and do it here.
Looking forward to that, man. Such a good guy.
Yeah.
Such a good guy.
Yeah, he was.
Loved him on deployment. Such a good leader. Yeah,
I was going to say, not a lot of people, have that impact both personally and professionally, but he certainly did. So just such a good dude. Excited to have him on. But just wanted to wrap with that. And again, guys, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We know that there's so many other podcasts that you can be listening to. So we appreciate any time spent with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. And also check out our Instagram pages, Be The Standard Podcast for the business page. Mine is Denny_Paul12 and Mike Burns 1. And and then again, lastly, don't forget to check us out on LinkedIn at Be The Standard Podcast. Again, appreciate your time and your support, and we'll see you next time.
Be the standard.